A budget is something that should help you focus on what's important. Whether that's family and friends, fun, travel, your health and wellness, education, or maybe you want to start a business, having a budget will help you focus your money so that you are able to achieve your goals. One of the biggest reasons to have a budget is to stay out of or get out of debt. In the United States, these are the largest forms of debt that each household carries: student loan debt, auto debt, and credit card debt. With that said, there are two kinds of savings you want to set into place. One of them is an emergency fund. Having an emergency fund is essential for financial independence and peace of mind. An emergency fund is typically composed of 3 to 6 months of living expenses or four of your main needs, which are housing, utilities, food, and transportation. You can save 3 or 6 months worth of paychecks, 3 to 6 months of your gross income, or add up your housing, utilities, food 3 to 6 times and have that be your goal. But this doesn't necessarily need to be done all at once. It can be done slowly over time. The important thing to remember is that an emergency fund is essential in the event of something you can't foresee. So it's best to automate some of your budget for saving each month for an emergency. Another kind of savings to budget for are sinking funds. Sinking funds are essentially individual savings goals that may or may not be related to a need. You can save your funds in cash envelopes or in separate savings accounts. As a teenager or a new adult, one thing you might look forward to is purchasing a new car, whether it's actually new or a used but new to you car. What you would do is set an amount of money that you want to save every month. Let's say it's $100. You know, by the end of the year, you have $1,200 saved for a car, whether you buy a $1,200 used car or you put that money down on a car that you end up financing. Once you've saved your full amount, you can then maybe change the idea of what you're saving for something else like car maintenance. It's going to need new tires at some point, new brakes. Maybe you have to change the registration once a year or get a new license, or you have to get your oil changed every few thousand miles. And that is something that you can budget for every month and save in a sinking fund, or again, separate savings account. Another kind of sinking fund would be saving for gifts and holidays. Take Christmas, for example. If you saved $50 a month from January to November, you would have $550 saved for Christmas. Christmas is one of those holidays where people tend to go into debt over, but it's not necessary with a budget. There are essentially 5 components of a budget: your income, necessary expenses, debt repayment, savings, and retirement. Here are the 5 sections of what you can make as your own budget. The first one is income. So if you have a full-time job, you want to put that one as the top. Your side job or part-time job, if you have 2 part-time jobs, you would put each one on a separate line, and essentially how much you make per month at each job, whether you break it down into weekly paychecks or bi-weekly paychecks. Then if you have investments or unexpected windfalls of cash, such as a tax return or a stimulus check, that stuff can also go in there. And your budget's going to change month by month. So under the normal expenses category or necessary expenses, we have our 4 walls: rent or mortgage, electricity bill, cable or essentially the utility bills, our groceries, and our transportation costs, such as the car insurance or the gas. And so I've set in place essentially some average totals for some of the expenses. Obviously, they're going to change depending on if you pay things with a roommate or a significant other, but these are some of the expenses you can kind of expect here in New Jersey and just in general across the nation. So the best way to create a budget is in an Excel spreadsheet. There are different types of apps you can use, but it's just an easy way to lay out your expenses. And again, you can make each month different. Annual subscriptions is something that I have listed on here because that's something that comes up not every month, and maybe having a separate tab that is specifically for your annual subscriptions and notating when the next subscription date is going to come out of your account so you don't get thrown off when it comes out. Next up, we have debt repayment, and this is a huge category because a lot of Americans happen to be in debt. The average student loan debt at this time is $32,721. People typically pay $342 per month, and that's over the span of 10 years. And the interest rate is about 4.66% on average. For an auto loan, this was about $15,500 as the average, and that was if you were buying a used car, and $397 per month was the average payment on 5.27% interest. And lastly, credit card debt. $3,660 is the average amount owed by, I believe, people 18 to 35 years old at 14.65% interest. So essentially, you're paying $862 a month just on debt repayment if you are at the average. That's why saving for certain expenses, such as education or saving for a car, is super important. And having sinking funds or savings would help you in terms of your credit card debt. So for this example, this person brings home $3,600 a month. They should be saving about 10% of your income, so that means they should be saving about $360 per month. By the end of the year, that is close to $8,000 you're saving, which is fantastic. And that's just for an emergency, right? And as you can see, we have some sinking funds in the categories down here, such as your car maintenance, holiday or gifts, personal sinking fund. So like, let's say you are in debt. Paying off debt is really difficult and sometimes defeating, and you need some things for yourself. So maybe you're saving for some new clothes or some new shoes, or you're saving to go to a concert. These are essentially wants, not needs. Maybe you need it for your mental health or for your motivation, but it's not necessarily something you need to exist. So it's important to save, and that'll hopefully keep you out of credit card debt. The final category is retirement and investments, and there's different types of retirement plans. And I know no one really likes to think about retirement, but it's super important. There is a whole movement called the FIRE movement in which people retire super early. It's called Financial Independence Retire Early, and some people retire in their 30s, their 40s, 50s, way before their 60s. Or if you're on financial independence, you can essentially have mini retirements where maybe you could take a couple months off of work and travel the world if you want. So saving for your future long term with retirement and short term with your savings will only benefit you in the long run. In this Excel sheet, you can see that it's pretty easy to figure out your totals. There is an equation you can put into Excel, and you basically want to make sure that your income matches your outcome. So you don't want to overspend. It's great to underspend. You can spend that money on savings or debt repayment or putting it towards something else you need. You can see I have a net worth calculator, and your net worth is essentially your assets and your liabilities put together. The more liabilities you have, in this case, this person has $51,881 in liabilities and only $360 saved. It's just something to really look at and see, and I think it's a benefit. As each month goes on, you will see your savings grow, and hopefully you will see your debt diminish. And hopefully you just feel more confident about making decisions in your life, and you can make decisions based on things that are important to you. So how do we do this? It's important to pay yourself first, make it automated, and live rich now. In the latte factor, we find out that paying yourself first means saving. It means considering yourself an employee. So as much as you love to give your money to bills and other necessary expenses, it's important to save for you currently and your future self. You can do this by making things automated. Automate your savings. Tell your savings account every month I'm going to have $50 deposited from my checking account into my savings account or multiple savings accounts, and to live rich now. You can do this by saving so that you can do the things you want to do now as they come up without putting yourself in financial debt and ruin. We talked about creating a budget through an Excel spreadsheet, but there's other ways to do that. There's Mint.com, EveryDollar has an app, and there's also You Need a Budget. So there's plenty of ways and no excuses to make. There's also the library. We have a plethora of books on personal finance for adults and teens, so check them out. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.